Hello, this is Consuelo. It is 11117. That's today's date, 8 p.m. and a very happy new year, Bobby. How are you this evening?
Happy New Year. I didn't know you were going to bring me in that fast.
I know, we have a long episode tonight. We have 1 hour approximately. And as you see here, right here, please do not be offended that where it says retarded, and underneath in the small font it says that's a serious euphemism. So Bobby and I were just talking about euphemisms, and those are words that can be used interchangeably, like slang. So what are some euphemisms that we use on the regular? The Black Eyed Peas made that song, "Let's Get Retarded" in here. So that's also how you use retarded as a euphemism. How would you put that into context? Let's get retarded in here.
Well, I guess they're using it as kind of to get like stupid, drunk, and kind of stuff
Like get
like
stupid,
that. You know?
right? Get retarded, get drunk, get
Who's
crunk,
that?
get hype.
Bismarcky, back in the days, the rapper wrote a song, "Cold Get Retarded," using that same kind of terminology.
Cold?
Cold Get Retarded, you know.
Oh, what is that?
Bismarcky, you remember?
Yeah.
The rapper. So it's just kind of the same way. Get retarded, get drunk, get stupid. That's what the way they used it as. Same as the Black Eyed Peas.
So maybe this would be a good time to refer back to one of my favorite book quotes, which was The Life of Frederick Douglass. And it was about slavery. He was a slave. Do you remember that book, Bobby?
I do not.
Well, there was one part, they talked about vacation, such as the holidays, as Christmas, where the slave drivers would allow you to drink and party and box and etc. And, as if the slaves weren't exhausted enough. They exhausted their vacation with all this vigorous activity. And everybody was so hungover and beat up afterwards, they were like super excited to get back to regular slavery. So if you could imagine, like, you're in slavery, and if like slavery couldn't get any worse, we're gonna call it a slavery party, which is almost like entering the second or third gate of hell, I imagine.
Not very nice.
Is that euphemistically sound?
It sounds euphemistically sound.
So let's see, according to dictionary.com, the word is retarded. So I won't be getting into any clinical sort of diagnoses, because I know there's like spectrums of handicap, or what is it? Needs. So the dictionary definition of retarded says less advanced in mental, physical, or social development than is usual for one's age. Otherwise very foolish or stupid. So I guess you can use the term sort of loosely. And then what's the other definition I have here? Give me a moment. Come on, give me the other definition. I guess we could use it as stunted in some way. Stunted.
Well, retarded, the word almost means turned back or slowed down, so stunted works.
So slow or limited in intellectual or emotional development.
Yeah, I think as time goes on and we got more into
So your
today's,
emotions can be retarded.
yeah, anything can be retarded, but I think when people use the term retarded, mental, as far as someone's mental agility and progress, that's when people get a little offended. That back in the days used to say, "Oh, that person's retarded," but they don't like saying that today because they get offended using the word retarded when you're describing someone's mental ability.
Right. Because it's a struggle.
Yeah, it's not something that they can help. So their mental ability is stunted, but I guess the word retarded they don't like. That's just the way it sounds.
And people get all crazy about it, like, don't call me retarded.
Well, yeah, but a mentally retarded person, nobody wants to be called retarded, even if they're not retarded. But
well, I think there is an unbelievably grand spectrum of retarded considering emotional or intellectual development.
Yeah, true.
It's a little scary, right?
Like I said, back in the days, I think the term was used more towards, describing someone's mental ability. But as in the current, I think we use it more loosely now, to describe a lot of things. And then people who really are taking care of a mentally, challenged person, they don't like their children to be called retarded or.
So I'm going to go into this, reach into my swag bag here, and we're going to talk about this term retarded. All right?
All right.
And we're going to talk about everyday retardedism. So let's see, what are some of the topics we've been discussing? We talked about laws pertaining to thought and personality, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we talked about brainwashing.
Yeah.
I'm lacking a lot of technical terms other than the word retarded this evening, so we're going to try to keep it loose. So brainwashing. What is the result of that? Now, brainwashing changes one's brain by disactivation and reactivation of its parts. Do you remember when we talked about brainwashing, Bobby?
Mm-hmm.
And we talked about all the tactics, like Pavlov's dogs and salivation and let's see, we talked about an example of a person being brainwashed and how they're stimulated and sensitized and desensitized during that process. And I'm going to describe the result as a variant of retardation. Does that sound fair?
Sounds pretty fair.
So if you're being brainwashed, you're isolated, you're with this captor who's got you with this regressive stimulation to break you down, right? To build up your dependency because, for example, Bobby, you're my captor, and I'm a liberated woman. It's been almost 100 years of women's rights in America. So you're my captor now, and you need to make me dependent on you.
True.
Isn't that what marriage is like? I'm just kidding. I don't know what marriage is like.
No, I wouldn't either.
Yeah, okay. So you're making me dependent on you. So we go through this process where you have to make me feel super insecure. Because what would I be doing if I wasn't really insecure, Bobby? What would you be concerned about if I was your wife/captive and/or captive? You can decide. Would you prefer me as your wife captive, or do you just want a regular run-of-the-mill captive?
Oh, well,
Tough decision, hypothetically speaking.
I think you're going to get in a lot of trouble if you just have a straight up captive.
You can get in a lot of
You
trouble
know.
if you have a straight-up captive.
I'll stick with the wife captive.
Even hypothetically speaking?
Hypothetically.
You don't even want to be in hypothetical trouble?
I wouldn't want to. I don't want to make anybody a captive against their own will. So let's just hypothetically, let's say
it happened naturally. So this is naturalism captive. So I'm not initially your captive, but let's just say due to the nature of our relationship, this becomes a brainwashed captive situation because we have a serious relationship. Okay, so Bobby, why would you be making me feel so insecure all the time?
So you can continuously doubt yourself.
And why would I need to do that?
So you can lose control.
So I can lose control. That's interesting. Why do you say it like that?
Well, because if you consistently, say things or do things to make somebody feel like they can't depend on themselves, and it's just like telling a girl, little things that make her feel unsure of herself, and then she starts to lose her self-esteem.
So that was one of our sections of the brainwashing techniques, is sort of degradation, regressive degradation. Because let's face it, Bobby, like what if I go out and I'm feeling really confident one night and I'm just going off and having like some like random threesome with like some other guys?
Well, if you're my wife and my girlfriend, that's not a good thing.
That's not a good thing.
No.
So you would make sure I can't leave the house too confident. Right?
No, I would want there to be a trust issue, so we don't have to worry about that.
We don't want trust issues,
but if
Bobby.
if you have serious trust problems and you have to resort to making somebody, degrading somebody so they have no self-confidence, self-esteem, then that would be the way to go about it. Yeah.
So have you ever listened to the radio? You've listened to the radio, heard them talk about something like everyday racism? This is where I got this idea from, because I want to call it everyday retarded.
Okay.
So things that put us in our retarded zone. Right?
Okay.
So let's say before I left the house today, you told me I look fat and that my hair was messed up, and now I'm going out with my friends, and there's no way I'm going to try to kick it with anybody because I'm feeling like, nobody's going to want to talk to me like a fat mess.
Yeah, but then what if somebody does, approach you and tell you, oh, wow, you look beautiful tonight. You look, very attractive. And then you're going to be like, really? Wow, this guy.
Well, that's interesting. So hypothetically speaking, though, now that you mention that, what if somebody does approach me like that?
It's going to make you feel good.
Will it
because
make me feel any type of way if I'm already a victim of brainwashing?
Well, true, because you won't believe it. It's just like a girl who
That's a little different than everyday retarded.
Yeah, well, it's like a girl who's constantly being told she's not pretty, and then somebody tells her she's pretty, and she almost like, what are you, crazy? I'm not pretty. She doesn't believe it because she's been told so many times that she's not pretty that even if somebody truly does believe it and tell her that, she doubts it and doesn't even believe it.
So if I were like a regular person, hypothetically, not me, but the hypothetical somebody of this nature, we get into our little argument, I go out, and somebody flatters me, and I'm feeling that way because I'm angry at you, and I'm going to be resentful, and we're just going to have a big fight about it. NBD, no big deal. But if we're talking brainwashing here, which is brain programming, which disactivates and reactivates the portions of our brain. And we put it in this scenario, and we go out, or I go out, and now my brain is so retarded that you can't logically respond to this normal social activity. This is an extreme example. I'm just elaborating on what we had already discussed.
Mm-hmm.
But you see what I'm getting at.
Yeah.
It's their spectrum. Throw it in the bag, right? So, where else can we go with this? Retarded, that's a serious euphemism. So we have retarded as something like we're going to get stupid. I use the example from Frederick Douglass because slavery was so aggressive, and that even the leisure activities were so abusive, unfathomably abusive. You know, survival was so fragile and futile. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So we have oppression. You know, we have the minority, and I often speak of women sometimes as an oppressed gender, specifically as the epic perpetual male dominant persists in this world due to genetical natures, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm nothing compared to you, Bobby. Small beans over here, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're always going to have at least 2 inches on me. Right? Our structures are a little different. Is it just me? A little different.
Yeah.
So historically, we have our evolution. We have us here in America having survived slavery and the oppression of minorities and women, right? So what is oppression? Oppression is control, because let's face it, like, you're not going to want to have a dog who shits all over the house, right? But you're not going to want to have a dog that gets angry and dominates you and takes away your life, whatever that may be, physically or metaphorically, euphemistically, however you call it. So, yeah, were you going to say something?
Oppression would be kind of more of, you know, a form of control, but also just holding somebody back, you know what I'm saying? Not letting them reach their full potential for whatever reason.
And as humans, we have full potential. So let's talk again about everyday retarded. Like, let's face it, how many times are you going to tell us not to do drugs? How many people are doing drugs? Everyday retarded, right? You choose to do drugs, everyday retarded, MBD, no big deal. Population control, MBD, no big deal. We'll put the NBD on it, because that's how we're treated as humans, as NBD, no big deal. All right, because there's so many of us. Who needs us anyway?
There's too many people, yeah.
What do we do here on this earth?
Half the people are attributing nothing to society.
We're attributing nothing to society.
Nothing, just going through everyday motions.
We live loosely. Excuse me, I have a little, like, something in my eye here. So we contribute loosely as individuals. I mean, I don't know what good we're doing here tonight, except for just relaying information, right? It's a radio show.
It's information.
It's enlightenment.
Content. It's education to a certain extent, you know.
Yeah.
So, what is everybody else doing at this time? On their couch, watching some reality?
On the couch watching our show, because what else would they be doing at this time?
Or worse, watching some reality TV show about someone else's life that has no effect on them whatsoever, that isn't educating them or enlightening them in any way whatsoever. So I think watching Consuelo's webcast is much more beneficial than just watching some reality television show.
I think so too. Now, can we talk about, I'm going to have you use your imaginations a lot, because this show is retarded.
This show is retarded?
Yeah, because I'm not developed enough to have clips and fancy things like we had on the Jerry G show.
Oh, well, I don't know. I would consider the Jerry G show a little retarded.
It's
also
differently retarded. So we're going to use an example here. My favorite example of this retarded spectrum is like, you have to imagine it. I don't know if you've ever seen a movie like this, but you see action movies, right?
Yeah, here and there. I'm not a big action movie guy.
And
yeah.
You have this guy, we'll call him like the head honchi, right? This guy, he's like straight up criminal, and he is not to be messed with, right? And what is he going to be like? He's going to be like real serious, right? There's like no funny time with him. He has a job for you, you need to do the job, and he sends his cronies to do the job, right? Mm-hmm. But this guy is serious, and he knows exactly what he needs, he knows exactly what to do, he knows exactly how to get it, and he's going to up all over the place to get whatever it is that he wants, right?
Okay.
And now you have the other guy who he's working with. Now, who do you think he's going to be working with? The funny guy, right? So this is like when I think of this spectrum of like emotionality. We're going to leave emotions out of the picture because we're not going to imagine either one of them as particularly emotional. We're going to just acknowledge one as super not funny and one as super funny, right?
Okay.
And we have the guy that like doesn't even want to listen to the other one. You know, like this one guy needs to do his job and he's going to the other guy like, why isn't the job done? And the guy's going to come back to him with all this fancy charismatic BS about, don't worry, I'm going to get this job done. There's no problem, blah, blah, blah. And the guy can't even tolerate listening to him. Have you ever seen one of these movies, or am I just like talking out of my asshole here?
Yeah, you know.
Right?
Yeah.
Well, anyway, that's my favorite example of two retardeds.
Okay.
I ain't got much. So I think that's just an example of competence and what is it? A competence without emotionality. So I think that would be retarded, is how I'm going to put that. Mm. Do you have any examples of retarded characters that you really appreciate?
Pee Wee Herman. Pee Wee's Big Adventure.
Oh yeah, Pee Wee was pretty
he was
pretty good example.
Yeah, that's the first thing that I know is kind of old school, but like I said, I haven't watched too many movies lately, but that's the first thing that comes to mind. That was like one of my favorite movies. I thought it was hysterical, but he's a classic example of being maybe a little bit retarded.
Yes, so this is going to bring me into the next thing of what I can't stand. But I don't think it's any different than any of these examples. So we'll gently touch upon this before we get into some fun other retarded topics. So we have that kid in class who's like, we have our regular classroom here. Let's picture we have a classroom. We have all our students. Mm-hmm. We have the teacher. And we have our regular students all excelling, right? And then we have the kids who are like struggling a bit, and that's sliding down into the retarded zone, and for whatever reason these kids are struggling in class, and I'm just making these observations of the kid who's always angry about the kids who get coddled. Like, why does one person get an extra day with their homework and the other person doesn't? And so, like, if one person's retarded, there's some other asshole in the class that's like, well, if that person could be retarded, I can be retarded. And I think this is how retarded nature comes about.
Because one person's jealous of the other person who's getting more time because they're
I think this
slower.
is socially how we share in retarded ultimately. Like, what is social behavior? If social behavior is not retarded, I don't know what is. It's our common grounds, right? So we have religion. We have brainwashing. So we have religion and brainwashing. Different but similar. Shall we talk about those differences and similarities?
I don't consider religion I mean, if it matters what type of religion you're talking about. So
we're not saying, I'm not going to be one of those people that like, oh, religion brainwashes you.
If you're talking like some sort of new religion, some sort of Scientology or something where they're making up stuff, I could see that being,
But what if Scientology doesn't think they're making up stuff?
It got made up from somewhere because it just out of nowhere. L. Ron Hubbard, who wrote science fiction books, came up with that religion.
We're back in our classroom, and we're exploring how we all relate socially. So this is our social schema. And schemas are our little like internal building blocks that create our brains. They're like little houses. They're like like little condos in our brain that store I wouldn't say information specifically on its own. I would say associations. So they're the building blocks of our associations. So how do we get these? Well, a great way to observe that would be religion. Because, you have religious power, which is historically what we're accustomed to wherever we may be from. And it's part of our development as a person, like if you're a spiritual person. I mean, obviously not everybody is religious, but maybe they'll be aware of it for whatever reason. Maybe just by being in America, I mean, in God we trust, or swear on the Bible, or whatever it is, there are common understandings, right? So we have religion, we have whatever way our parents or we as parents initiate development, and then we have whatever things happen during our lifetime naturally that reinforce these things. So we have nature and nurture. So we have religion. I went to Catholic school. Did you go to Catholic school at all?
No, I went to public school.
Did you have any sacraments?
Yeah, I did all that with the, through catechism and, just being brought up Catholic.
So you were raised Catholic.
Yeah.
So we were both here now. Let's say we're familiar.
Yeah.
Right. So when we talk about brainwashing, I mean, you said you were studying some theology anyway, and like I said, I'm not going to say religion is brainwashing. I'm also not going to say it's not that. And the reason I'm not going to say it's not that are for these reasons. So we talked about brainwashing specifically in organized fashion like Pavlov and his dogs. I must go through this process with you of stimulation and degradation and breaking down and reinforcing and starving you of information and controlling what is being fed to you in your brain and what the condition of your body is and your personal environment as well as your external environment. And this is the only way I'm going to be able to make the observations in this experiment that I want to see. So we have the church. Everybody likes going to church. And why do we like going to church?
I don't know. I wouldn't say everybody.
Everybody likes going to church.
I like going to church.
So why do you like going to
church? I would say the
church?
majority of the people don't like going to church. I do. I mean, I never used to, but now I do.
So we like going to church. Why? Because we're there. We got all these people. They take us into the pews. And what does the priest start doing for us? He starts playing the piano. We all start singing along. We got the books. We're all reading the same pages. And now we're all zonked out. What is he doing? He's brainwashing us.
That's your opinion. I don't believe he's...
And we pay them to do so.
You don't have to pay them anything.
You don't have to. You can get brainwashed for free.
Oh, I don't go to church for those reasons.
What do you mean you don't? That's the reason why everybody... What do you mean you don't go to church for those reasons?
I don't go to church for those reasons. I go for different reasons. I go to hear
Whoopsie.
Gospels. I go to get absolved of my sins. I go to receive the Eucharist. I go to educate myself on how to be a better person.
I go to alleviate my hangovers from a Saturday night.
At church?
Yeah.
Really?
Sure, why not? So we have our reading material. We have the installation of fear. We have our nice soothing and cradling environment with our peers so that we can all be together, which also alleviates us from this fear that's being imposed on us by the nature of what we're subjecting ourselves to. So we have other things like yoga where we do the same thing, right? We are having an organized time to zone out where we're engaged physically and mentally with each other. Gentle brainwashing. But it's, it's development, it's organization, it's belief, it's spiritual. Do you, don't you think it would be a little dry to be without that?
Yoga in particular, I don't really need yoga.
I mean, without some sort of paranormal belief system.
Paranormal, or just having some sort
metaphysical.
of faith, having some sort of faith into something bigger than what we are here.
Right.
Yeah. I think it's important. If our society right now, half the people don't believe in anything bigger than themselves. They think it's all about them, and that's why we're in this sick, twisted world as it is right now. Because everybody is self-absorbed with themselves. They don't think that there's anything bigger than themselves. They think that they are the main thing, and they don't care about other people. And that's why we're like this.
Now,
when you believe there's something bigger than you live your life differently. But when you think you're it, and the whole world revolves around you, you live your life differently than that.
So we have this thing. We have, in the church, we have good and evil. Outside the church, we have right and wrong. Does that sound accurate to you?
No, it's still right and wrong regardless, you know. It's still all based about doing the right thing, loving one another, taking care of one another, putting other people above yourselves, not being selfish. You know, it's right and wrong, good and evil, it's all the same thing.
But if evil doesn't exist, because evil would be associated with some spiritual deity like the devil,
Absolutely.
then it would just be wrongness, like that totally wrongness, right?
Yeah, it's right or wrong, yeah. And I guess good or evil or you know, has a belief in something that cultivates good and something that cultivates bad.
So let's speak in terms of good and evil, right? And we have God as good and the devil as evil. And what God wants and what the devil would elicit. Now, how we observe each other in the world and how we observe things in the world, what would be your perspective of goodness and what would be your perspective of evilness?
I pretty much just said it before. I think being good and living a just and righteous life is not putting yourself above and beyond everything else in life. Taking care of other people, loving other people, not just waking up and loving yourself and doing everything about your day that benefits you and nobody else. That is evil. That is wrong. That is not living righteous. That is not love. Living good, living just, living righteous, that's all about waking up and saying, what can I do for somebody else today? How can I help somebody today? It's not about, when you put yourself first, that's evil right there. That's wrong.
But do you think God wants us going to the bars on Fridays and Saturday nights and drinking?
I think God has no problem with anybody who wants to go out and get a drink, but when we become a slave to the liquor and we alter our state of mind and start to hurt people and do things when our judgment is not clear, I think that is not right. Absolutely. But there's nothing wrong with having a drink, having a beer, having a glass of wine, being around people, enjoying, certain things. But getting totally drunk, doing, drugs, poisoning your system, definitely not.
So that's like everyday evil. And that could be retarded.
I don't know about retarded.
You think that's what the Black Eyed Peas were talking about?
I think they.
Do you think they were implying that we should get with Satan?
Getting drunk, getting silly, getting stupid, getting retarded. That's the way they...
Like, let's get down with Satan.
To a certain extent.
Because I'm not saying the retarded are evil. I'm just saying that...
the way they're using it.
As a euphemism.
Yeah, the way they're using it is
sounds a little bit devilish.
Clearly getting drunk, getting crazy, getting stupid, just being a little reckless,
Fair enough. So, what other everyday retarded do we have? Like, do you have anything that just makes you go retarded? That makes you so mad, like all of a sudden you're just like, whoa, like my brain just went retarded? Like you just saw stars, you went so retarded?
The only thing that gets me a little crazy or a little I think encountering certain people, driving, a little road rage, that kind of gets me a little bit, not myself, But
How flattering you are.
what do you mean?
Nothing. So we're going to talk more about brainwashing. And so deconstruction and reconstruction of the brain. How we feed ourselves, right? What stimulates us and what doesn't stimulate us. I just started studying a little bit of fitness because I'm going to be working on that. And, using your body instigates your brain. As we get older, we degenerate. So as people, we're going to evolve emotionally and intellectually. And then we're going to decline, at least intellectually, or somehow, right? As we get into our older age, and then we just croak, and then we go to heaven, right?
No, most of us aren't going to heaven.
You don't think most of us are? How come they have one heaven and 7 gates of hell?
7 levels of hell, yeah. Depending on how bad you are.
Well.
But most of us will go to purgatory until we get purified and cleansed. Then we go to heaven.
So, we have ways. The serpent has his way with us, right? By how he corners our brain. Because how would we be able to evolve in a society where it's capitalism and consumerism if somebody didn't know how to reach us retardedly? Right? You can't even answer that question because there's no way. Like, I need to sell you this product, you're never going to buy it unless I make you a little stupid first. I got to make you stupid for it. Because otherwise there's no way you're selling anything.
You have to figure out some way where that person thinks they're going to better themselves by buying that product, where it's going to make them feel better, it's going to make them look better, it's going to make them find some reason
you have to believe in it,
that product is going to do something to help them.
You got to go retarded for it.
You got to trick them, fool them, whatever it is, yeah. Dumb them down.
So,
that's brainwashing, commercials on TV.
Right, because they're utilizing all the forces against us.
And it's the easiest thing is doing it to children.
So,
playing commercials with toys, another kid playing with a toy, having so much fun.
Things that make kids retarded. That other kid's toy just made your kid retarded.
Yeah, well, and a child's brain is not fully developed, so they're easily influenced. They're not fully grown. They don't even know that they're being tricked in some sort of way. So that's the easiest thing is children's toys and children's products.
Do you just see how we're just taken advantage of on the regular?
Of course, every day. That's somebody's got to sell their products. How can we fool somebody into thinking that this is going to help them? This is going to.
There's nothing worse than taking advantage of a retarded person.
Or a child, yeah.
Like I said, a retarded person. So we reinforce things like when you think about learning and educational processes, like you have to study. Do you remember studying vocabulary words as a kid? Just reading them over and over again for your vocab test?
I did. I can't even go back that far. But I know what you're saying.
Yeah. Swag bag. So, you want to be able to have these intellectual and mental liberties, right? So we talked about brainwashing, which is totally wrong. Like, if you go back and we revisit the human rights doctrine, because you want to be able to a certain degree, I mean, we're already surrounded by all these things that are influencing our brain and behaviors. And then we go to school where we're like learning all this great stuff, which is why people are so appreciative of their schools and their good teachers, you know. So it's like heaven and hell all day long, right? God and the devil, good and evil, rightness, wrongness, whatever, whatever, whatever. And we carry on. So we're so lucky that we have the freedom to like talk about these things, because from the beginning of time till the end of time, all we're going to have is communication, and communication is what lets it live, right? It's the way the world turns. And so, you know, we revisit this human rights doctrine where we're allowed, like, to some degree, the security of our body, like we're at least entitled to defend our body, or else like rapists would rule the world or something, or like whatever, alien invasions and stuff. How do you stop an alien invasion?
There's no way to stop an alien invasion.
Scary. But then you also, like, to some degree, want to like protect your brain from like somebody imposing all this like degeneration or degradation, or you know, like reinforcing beliefs that you don't want to have.
No,
that's, you know, like if you're not a Catholic, right? You don't want somebody making you a Catholic. Like, what if you're like a Wiccan?
Well, nobody wants to be imposed upon with others, you know, stuff.
People don't like being imposed upon. However, we have all these advertisements. You know, we have the movies. So we subject ourselves to these things regularly.
Yeah, and even on Facebook, on social media, we're getting hundreds, if not thousands of people's views. It's like going on Facebook is like opening up your door and letting hundreds of people in your house and listening to their opinion on life and subjects, you know? So years ago, we didn't have that. We encountered the people that we encountered during our day. Now we don't even have to leave the house, and we hear hundreds of opinions every day on every subject that there is.
Right, like what's going on in this person's life. One person's at home with their dog. And somebody else.
We're not even asking people's opinions. We're just getting their opinions right on our
by checking it.
Yeah,
right, by signing up. We sign up. We check in.
Yeah.
We contribute, and that's part of our day, right? Mm-hmm. We check in. We check out.
What's going on? What's everybody else doing right now? You know, what's happening? So we go on our social media, we scroll through, and we see what's going on in the world, you know? And then we get bombarded with everybody else's political views and, you know, and opinions and everything. So we don't have to do it. I mean, I know people who aren't.
And we
even
make
on
the
Facebook.
time for this.
We make the time for this, yeah.
Brilliant, isn't it? Social media?
Yeah. I mean, do you know anybody that's not on Facebook? Like just somebody who lives their life not on Facebook? Very few.
Well,
there are people.
I chose to be on Facebook.
We all chose to be on Facebook. But, I mean, there are a handful of people that refuse to go on Facebook. They don't need it. They
Probably
don't care.
for very good reasons.
Oh, because they just don't want to be subjected to all the, you know, I mean, you know, you're dealing with a lot of fake stuff too, you know, people posting all the good stuff and elaborating and exaggerating on all the good stuff that's happening.
So can we say that people who are not on Facebook as not retarded?
Probably.
for the most part, right?
Probably. I would say I'm on all the social media, but I'm more on of it for business, personal, reasons, because I have products and, I just want to make people aware of them. Not that I'm trying to hypnotize or
Me too.
brainwash them. But, a lot of people just on there personally because they can't go through the day without knowing what everybody else is doing.
I appreciate social media as a creative resource.
Oh, of course you can't. It's so hard to do it without it. If you're in the public eye or you're in business, I mean, it's a way to get your business out there. But personally, that's why I don't even really scroll through the news feed that much. I may post something here and there, but I try not to just scroll through and just look at what everybody else is doing.
My brain wouldn't be stimulated without memes.
Memes?
Yeah, like this, retarded. That's a serious euphemism. I like to see things like bae and boo. And roses are red, violets are blue.
Well,
if I'm with him, who the fuck are you? Ha 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 ha.
I posted something today that I think you liked, the one with the Snoopy and Charlie Brown.
That was very nice.
Which was cute, right?
That was very cute.
So sometimes little things like that are cute, and it was just a way of letting people know to, live your life.
Let's see if I have any good recent posts. I don't know if I saw anything particularly funny today. Some days are funnier than others, but every once in a while. Let's see.
Well. I mean, could you consider social media could be considered, it's a strong word to use, evil, but it can be used, anything can be used for good or for bad. There's a lot of people using, like what we just said, we use social media to promote ourselves and promote our businesses, and then you could have somebody who uses social media to hurt people, to make fun of people, to,
because they know that they can put it out there and
they're safe because they're in their own home.
Because they have that space between.
Yeah.
You separate yourself a little bit so you don't have to subject yourself to the direct response in case
because it's much easier
you're creating an effect.
To sit in your home and post something bad about somebody rather than going up to their doorstep and ringing the doorbell and telling them to their face, It's so easy to be a social media gangster.
It is easy to be a social media gangster.
Yeah. Everybody's tough. Everybody's got muscles on social media.
It's like a second class of gangster.
Absolutely.
If you can't roll with the big dogs, you're going to do it on Facebook.
Yeah, you bully.
On your computer.
Facebook bully.
So I have this meme here that says, "You want to convince me with God and Jesus, but feel offended when I talk about the power of now." Have you read that book, The Power of Now?
No.
It's a funny one. I'm really into the resting bitch face thing, trending resting bitch face. Do you know that one?
No.
When people give you that look, like you say something to somebody and they're just like giving you that face, like perplexion.
Yeah, I know the expression.
It's called resting bitch face. On the outside, it's resting bitch face, but on the inside, I'm perplexed. And just because I'm perplexed doesn't mean I'm retarded. And just because I'm perplexed doesn't mean I'm not retarded. It just means I have resting bitch face on.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, so I find memes stimulating, and I always incorporate those into my day. I'm into jokes, I find jokes stimulating.
Yeah.
Because we have to activate these parts of our brain without exploiting it.
You have
You know,
to,
we have to laugh.
you
We have
have
to
to
express
laugh.
ourselves.
Absolutely.
Sometimes we're going to be sad. You know, sometimes we do need to do critical thinking.
You have to exercise your emotions.
You know, it really grinds my gears.
What grinds your gears?
I'm just going to put this out there because we're cutting it close, and we are talking about our favorite topics. When somebody asks you a question and they already know the answer, so they ask you the question just to hear you say the answer they already have in their minds.
So it's almost like a rhetorical question. They ask it, meanwhile they know the answer.
Well, what's a rhetorical question? A rhetorical question is like, you know, what is a rhetorical question?
I think a rhetorical
What's a common
question
rhetorical
is
question?
asking someone a question that you know what the answer is going to be.
But it's more than a rhetorical question. Rhetoric. Because it's not just like, don't even answer that. You already know the answer.
It's like asking somebody, hey, you know, you want to make money? No, I don't want to make money. You know, or you know, just something that where you know what their answer is going to be.
Because like a rhetorical question is usually like both people know the answer, like don't even answer that. Or like a dumb question where it's like, what is a rhetorical question? Shoot, we have 5 minutes. I need to find a rhetorical question. A rhetorical question is a question asked, according to Google, in order to create a dramatic effect or to make a point rather than to get an answer. So the question sort of answers itself by making a point.
Yeah, like there's no need to answer
Like,
it.
what do you think? I'm retarded? You don't need to answer that. That's a rhetorical question. But, you know, you have like a question that provokes thought, and you have a question that organizes thought. And those are two different things, right? Because of doing, you know, like doing the same thing.
So the rhetorical question is like, is the Pope Catholic? Do bears live in the woods? You know, those are obviously...
What do you think, I'm retarded?
Well, that's questionable. So, because if somebody says, what do you think, I'm stupid? You know, the chances are you never know. I mean, somebody could, you know what, honestly, I do think you're stupid. You know, like, that's, I know what you're saying, but it has to be something, you know, does a dog bark? That's a rhetorical question.
Okay.
Clearly a dog barks. But yeah,
So-
asking somebody, yo, do you think I'm stupid? You know,
So doing one thing, like asking a question, it can have so many different responses as far as how it uses your brain, because one question will corner your brain for a response, and another question will use your brain to provoke critical thinking or creative thinking.
Yeah, you
Right?
definitely, yeah.
Brain exercises. Yeah, so we're just checking in here. We're all on the same page. Retarded, that's a serious euphemism. A euphemism is how we can use a word many different ways creatively. We have slang like let's get retarded, which is retarded as the euphemism, and which is also confused with being retarded, right?
Yeah.
Like just because I speak in tongues doesn't mean I'm retarded.
True.
All right, well, we have about a minute and a half left. Any closing statements, Mr. Bobby?
No, I'm pretty good. I mean, I thought we got into a little bit of the brainwashing. Not sure how that tied into the retarded.
Because brainwashing is what controls your brain. It creates a brain deconstruction for reconstruction, which means you could be a genius and be made retarded. Just like you could be a regular person and have the different effects, but ultimately it changes your intellectual capacity and your emotional capacity, which could potentially make your capacities retarded, because it's not often that you get brainwashed with the intention to not make it degenerative.
So like somebody who's really, really a smart guy, the guy's like a rocket scientist, but yet he gets pulled into some crazy
It
cult.
regresses you. So
Like
brainwashing is sort of aggressive. It's a really aggressive
so
thing.
Smart let that happen to them? You know, somebody infiltrated their brain and dumbed it down.
Because it's abusive, and anything that abuses you is going to make you activate yourself unnecessarily.
Gotcha. Okay.
All right. Well, thank you, everybody. This is Consuelo, our third webisode, and stay tuned next month.